Hey everyone, today we have tips for snagging those hard-to-book dining reservations at Disney World. I'm Stevie, but my wife Amy here is our resident expert in getting these hard-to-get reservations.
Yeah, I mean, not to brag, but yeah.
Yeah, because you've gotten us the Topolino's breakfast, Ohana dinner, Space 220, etc. So why don't you give us the tips we need to know for snagging those hard-to-book dining reservations?
Okay, tip number 1 is to have a plan, but also be flexible. Those sound like contradictions in a way, but what I mean is you want to know what dining reservations are the most important to you to do, what are your must-dos, and what days do you want to do those on, but also know what days you could be flexible and switch. For example, I know that I could do Ohana dinner on my Magic Kingdom days because it's easy to hop on the monorail and head over to the Polynesian. But I could also book Ohana dinner for our rest day or our Animal Kingdom day since we don't tend to stay there until dinner. Mm-hmm. So it's important to have a plan, but also know which reservations you could be flexible with. Tip number 2, staying on property helps immensely. If you stay on Disney property in a Disney hotel, your window for dining reservations opens up at 60 days in advance of your check-in day and lasts for the length of your stay up to 10 days. This is a huge advantage because those hard-to-get reservations are often gone and fully booked by resort guests before a 60-day mark would open up for non-resort guests. Tip number 3, plan to try for the hardest to get reservations towards the end of your trip. What I mean by this is if you have that 60-day window for your whole trip and you're staying for 7 days, for example, go for those hard-to-get reservations on the last days of your trip because you're going to be most likely to get those reservations on those later days. Tip number 4, be ready to go the moment that reservations open at 6 a.m. Eastern on your 60-day mark. Now, the Disney website actually says 5:45 a.m., so I'm always up and ready, but I've never seen it open up at 5:45 a.m. It's always 6 a.m. on the dot. Go ahead and be ready early, though. If you have a plan and you know what your priorities are, you're going for the hardest to get reservations towards the end of your trip, then at 6 a.m. on the 60-day mark, you've got to be ready to go. You need your computer open. You need to be logged in to your My Disney Experience account. You need to have your phone open with the app. Now, you might say, Amy, why the computer and the phone? Well, we've run into issues before, right? Where the website crashes or the app crashes, and you really need both of them ready to go. Have your credit card information saved in there because that also speeds up the process. Also, what I tend to do on the computer is open up different tabs for all the restaurants that we want to try to book and open them up in order of difficulty and importance. And that way you're not scrolling through to try to find the restaurant. You've got the tab ready to go. All you have to do is hit refresh at 6 a.m. and it pulls up the available dining reservation times. Also, you need to try to book those most difficult to get restaurant reservations first, right at that 6 a.m. mark, and then work back to the least difficult to get reservations. I have found in general the most difficult reservations to get have been Space 220, Topolino's breakfast, Beaches and Cream if you have a large group. If you have a small group, it's not as difficult, but it's a small restaurant, so that one's been hard if we have our whole family there. California Grill, Ohana Dinner, Sci-Fi Dine-In, Storybook Dining at Artist Point is very difficult to get into. Chef Mickey's, Chef Art Smith Homecoming, and Cinderella's Royal Table. Tip number 5, search hour by hour, not breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what I mean by that is when you are on the website or you're on the app, you can search either by the words breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or you can search hour by hour, like every 30 minutes. There are many instances where I have seen reservations pop up for 5 o'clock that do not show up when you click dinner, or that show up for 12 o'clock when they don't show up when you click lunch. So always be sure to click through each of those times. Tip number 6, if you have a large party, consider 2 reservations for smaller groups. For example, when we went with your parents, Stevie, we were a party of 7, and it's very difficult to find a party of 7 reservation for some restaurants. So we made reservations for a party of 4 and a party of 3 within 5, 10, or 15 minutes of each other. That way we all have a guaranteed spot in the restaurant to be able to eat. And when you check in, if you ask very kindly, the cast members will really do their best to accommodate seating you all together. Now, it's not a guarantee, and you should not get upset if you are seated apart, but we found that for the most part, we were accommodated. There was one restaurant where we ended up having to sit at separate tables, but we were right next to each other, and we were totally fine with that. Keep in mind that you will need to have 2 different accounts to book these 2 reservations because they will not allow you to book overlapping reservations. Tip number 7, be flexible with times. If you don't have hangry kids and you're able to be a little bit more flexible with what time you're eating, it's easier to snag those hard-to-get reservations at off times. So think about like a 2 p.m. or a 3 p.m. or a 4 p.m. where most people aren't eating lunch or dinner, and you can oftentimes find a reservation in those times if it's really important to you to eat there. Even with these tips, though, sometimes you still can't get the reservation that you want. So what do you do then? Well, don't give up. Keep searching on the My Disney Experience app because there's oftentimes reservations that get canceled and they pop back up. But also, tip number 8 is to sign up for an alert system. So there are apps such as the Stakeout app, and there are websites like Touring Plans, Mouse Dining, Mouse Watchers, Mouse Seats, and Mouse Pros. And you can put in the date and the time and your party size that you are looking for at specific restaurants. And those websites and apps are continuously searching the Disney website to find an open reservation. And if one opens up, they will send you an email or a text alert. And you can click on it and it takes you to the reservation page. Now, I will say you have to be very, very quick with that because other people are doing the same thing too, and they're clicking on it, and so you might get beat out by somebody else. But I was able to snag some hard-to-get reservations this way. Tip number 9, search the night before. Always search in the 2 weeks, 1 week leading up to your trip because a lot of people are finalizing their plans and canceling reservations, but also especially in that 24 hours before you would want a specific reservation. Disney has a policy that if you don't want to get charged a no-show fee, you have to cancel the day before. So oftentimes people wait and hold on to a reservation they're unsure about until 24 hours before or even the night before. And I find that the night before, kind of close to around midnight, a ton of reservations pop up. So if you're using one of those alert systems or if you're just frequently checking on the app yourself, you can oftentimes find what you want the night before. Tip number 10, try a walk-up list. If all else fails, if all my tips have failed you and you still haven't gotten the reservation you wanted, you can always try a walk-up list. The My Disney Experience app will tell you if there's walk-up list availability. Now you have to be close to the restaurant to join, but you can oftentimes see that there might just be a 10-minute wait at Beaches and Cream or something like that. Tip number 11, Use Open Table or the Landry's card. There are some restaurants in Disney Springs that you can get reservations through Open Table, and sometimes even before that 60-day mark. So know what those are and be able to search those. Also, there's something called a Landry's card. So T-Rex at Disney Springs, Rainforest Cafe, and Yak and Yeti are run by the Landry's restaurant group. And they have this thing called the Landry's card. It's like a $25 fee, but then you get $25 off of your meal that you eat there, and you get priority seating. So if you don't have a reservation, you can show them that Landry's membership card, and they will give you priority seating, kind of bump you to the top of the wait list. And for the people who have continued listening this long, first of all, thanks. And next, I'll give a bit of a secret tip. If you have Facebook, there are groups there that help connect people who are canceling reservations with people who are searching for those same reservations. So you can go check those groups out too. Above all, though, realize that at the end of the day, there are so many good food options in Disney World. Some of the not so difficult to get reservations are actually some of the best. And there's really great quick service options too that you don't need a reservation for. We did a trip actually last September where all we ate was quick service, and it was one of the best trips that we've had.
It was great.
Yeah, so, don't get hung up on if you don't get this one reservation that it's going to ruin your whole trip. But hopefully these are some tips that will help you get what you want to get.
All right, well, we'll stop right there. Thank you for listening. If you found these tips helpful, please like and subscribe. It does help out the channel. We'll have more tips for trips coming soon.